So I want to talk about DNA and human DNA. We are going to understand why it is said that angelic humans are made of alien DNA, why the angelic human is actually organic, why we say that we are starseeds, and how hybridization and bioregenesis work. Hello everyone, my name is Valeria, and in this channel we talk about spirituality and esoterics. So, one of the most important themes for us to talk about in these times is about human DNA. Remember that we are part of the angelic humans on Earth. So, there are 3 points that are important. Number one is that we must understand the system of 12 dimensions and how they overlap with Earth to understand how all of that is actually from the Earth. It's not really external. Then we need to understand what is actually a stargate and the universal stargates, and then why some beings try to hybridize other beings. If you know the tree of life with 12 stargates, you know that each stargate is associated with a galactic stargate and with a universal stargate. Okay, that means that each of the 12 spheres is associated with a celestial body or with a planet and with a star system. And here is when it comes the material for starseeds, because universal stargates are the ones that are, for example, Arcturus or Sirius B, and so on. Then at the same time, you have that each of these 12 spheres is representing one dimension, which means that we have the 12 dimensions in this tree of life. Maybe you know that the Earth in which we are right now is the sphere number 3, and maybe you know that each density is created when 3 dimensions come together. So in this tree of life, you have the 4 densities, okay? Because you have 12 spheres. Then there are versions of the Earth in each of the 4 densities. This is when people talk about the fifth dimensional Earth, okay? Because the Earth in which we are right now is the version of the Earth for the first density. Then we have 3 more versions of the Earth in higher densities. Like the Earth for the second density is what people associate with the fifth dimensional Earth, okay? And those versions of the Earth overlap with certain universal stargates. So you have the Earth in the second density, which is called in this model Tara. She overlaps with Alcyone in the Pleiades. Then you have the Earth in the third density that is called Gaia and overlaps with Polaris, and you have the Earth in the fourth density, which is Eramatina, and overlaps with Eramatina on Lyra, which is also the name of one of the star systems in Lyra. Okay, so if we understand this, we understand that the angelic human has always been from the earth, in a way, in the sense that is all organic. Nothing came from the outside, okay? The angelic human was created from versions of humanity in higher dimensions. It is always the earth, but in higher dimensions. Then, as I said, each stargate is associated with a universal stargate, which means that if we were to leave plane of 4 densities of the Earth and to cross through a stargate with the intention of visiting the universal stargate, we will find something else there. What I mean by that is that we would find that stargate has a specific signature, and we will perceive that signature in a specific way. So, for example, we will get to Arcturus and we will see their signature, not as the angelic human, but as the specific signature from Arcturus. And that is when you can perceive a signature that looks as a blue being, for example, instead of looking as a human or angelic human. So each universal stargate has its own life force, which is manifested in a specific signature. Then you have Lyrans as feline beings. And what is even more interesting is that some beings can come directly to the earth and manifest that signature, that life force, as some animals. So I hope you understand that this is a thing of perspective. If you see this from the earth, all 12 dimensions are dimensions of the angelic human, okay? Of the earth in the different densities. And there is nothing external. And that is why the angelic human is organic, is from here, okay? While if you perceive the stargates from outside of the earth, you can perceive the energetic signatures, the specific signatures of beings in specific manifestations in specific star systems. But in any case, the angelic human is perfect and does not need mutations, hybridization, messing with the DNA, adding stuff, and so on. So when people say that we came from ETs, what they are trying to say, or what I hope they are trying to say, is that human is an organic creation that ascends through its higher aspects and manifestations, uh, and that each stargate or stage of ascension of humans has its counterpart or complement, which is a universal stargate, which is represented by a star system. And this is why we talk about starseeds, because we are expressing specific traits related to specific stages in the evolution of the angelic human, and at the same time we are a match with a universal stargate, with universal stargates that have a specific life force, and that life force has traits that we are embodying in this lifetime. So, for example, if you know that you came from Lyra, from Eramatina, you can remember yourself as a feline being, because that is true. Like at the other side of this target, so to speak, in the universal level, that is true. And you are in this lifetime embodying these Lyran traits. A lot of us, for example, right now we have faces that are like feline faces. You can see through your third eye, like the different physical traits of starseeds, and you can see that some specific traits are being embodied by specific people, and that also means that you are coming, in this case, from the earth in the fourth density, from the dimension number 12, from Eramatina, from the angelic humans that are in the 12th dimension. So it is both at the same time, depending on the perspective, you know? So at least my intention when I talk about starseeds and when I read Galactic Origins is not to say that the angelic human is not enough or that we need external DNA modifications. The idea is to acknowledge the universal aspect to this, and that some of us are embodying certain energetic imprints more, and we remember ourselves in certain stargates, and that is valid. And I believe that if we have a starseed awakening, we are meant to integrate our aspects that are from the universal stargates like Lyra, Arcturus, and also from the galactic stargates that are the celestial spheres like Venus, Mars, and is the same with those. They are different aspects of the Earth in different dimensions, but at the same time, if you look from outside of the solar system, they have all their own energetic imprints, and you can remember yourself as coming from Venus or from Mars, and your memories from Venus are going to be different from the memories from Mars, okay? And at the same time, you can see yourself as someone that was in different dimensions of the Earth when you were on those specific planets. So it is more or less the same. Then, if we go a step further, when we talk about beings having the potential for more than 12 DNA strands, those beings are hybrids and also starseeds, okay? But that is a whole different story and is when you are part of the founder groups, okay? But what I want to teach in this video is that the angelic humans and starseeds are the ones with 12 DNA potential, and that the angelic human is organic because was created out of itself from the tree of life, and that each of those stargates has its counterpart that is universal and corresponds to star systems, and we are meant to remember that as starseeds. So you have, for example, dimension number 2 that is associated with Venus at the galactic level, um, and at the level of the Earth, that dimension is associated with the inner Earth, okay? And at the universal level is associated with Epsilon Eridanus. So all of those aspects are real, but as you are from the Earth, you want to first understand yourself as this angelic human and understand like the first layer. And that first layer means that you can be in the 3D Earth, in the inner Earth, in the Earth from the dimension number 5, and so on, okay? But humans don't need hybridization. What we need is to activate our 12 DNA potential through the inner work and through spiritual science teachings, and to integrate our starseed aspects from the 12 stargates, which means to heal this, okay? It's not bypassing, because each time that you struggle with something at the universal level, you also struggle with that on the earth, you know? For example, my Lyran traits and challenges have been manifested on earth like these challenges to find a house, a home, a place, money struggles. Those are super Lyran themes, you know, and those are things that you need to integrate from the starseed level as well, okay? Um, and those are things that humans struggle with, okay? And then maybe you remember that you were a Lyran that was part of the wars, and maybe your planet was destroyed, and you know, uh, so you start to heal those feelings from within, and the feelings of not having a home, for example, that is going to be manifested, you know, in your current reality as you heal that on the inner level. And of course, not everyone needs their starseed aspects, okay? But if you had an starseed awakening that you probably had, you need this. So, you know, okay, then you know, when you do this, you know that if a group of beings, for example, from Sirius, Anunnaki beings, they come and they try to say that they created us, You can tell, like, no, because Sirius is at stargate number 6, which means that they are a group of beings that is on the other side of the stargate, in a part that is regressive, and they are only that, nothing else. Okay, so it is not possible that they coming from the sixth dimension created us. When we talk about founder beings, we talk about the guardians. I serve the guardians. I want to be clear with that. That is why I care about this material regarding spiritual science. So founder beings are beings from dimension 12 and beyond, that when I say beyond, I mean sound fields. Okay, and it's us, it's our higher dimensional aspects, really, that are again organic beings from this system of 12 dimensions. Is the expression of humanity when ascends into 12th dimension, and again they have an energetic imprint that is a feline being, and they exist as Lyrans at the same time that humanity exists. And we have star systems on Lyra that are stars, and stars are information. um, they are informing us about the energy signature of those specific Lyrans, and they are guides for us. They are never going to tell you that you need hybridization, that angelic humans are not enough, and so on. They only try to help by teaching you how to take care of your body by organic means, like breathing, doing postures, chanting, that has nothing to do with the dark agendas by fallen beings, except if those fallen beings are guiding you into the wrong, maybe chanting, or the wrong Merkaba teachings, okay? But those fallen beings are the ones that want you to get the V, to accept AI, to welcome machines in your body, and so on. So we have to understand that the angelic human is perfect in essence and would never need any sort of DNA mutation or hybridization, okay? If that happens, there are two possibilities. Um, so one is that fallen beings are just messing up with DNA, creating hybrids with AI. They do that when they become regressive, which means that their DNA is always getting worse and their life force is always decreasing until the moment in which they are not going to have more life force. They try to force themselves into beings with healthy DNA, into collectives. They interbreed with females, okay? They try to get healthy DNA and sometimes to have children that are hybrids because they want to have bodies in which they can incarnate, and from there they try to enter this kind of organic timelines, so they want to force themselves into ascension. I want to be clear with that. It is like their systems of dimensions have not more life force. They are disconnected from source and they are dying, and they know that, and they try to keep those systems alive even without their own life force, but with the life force of other systems. Okay? And number two is that if you have beings that are already fallen beings, they in some cases can receive bioregenesis, which are techniques that serve to restore the DNA into the original angelic DNA, but those techniques don't involve the use of AI or weird material things, okay? The techniques are inner dynamics and techniques, and often the guardians, beings with healthy DNA, teach the fallen beings how they can repair DNA, Other option is that sometimes a being with the complete DNA, a healthy being, is born in specific families or collectives or civilizations, affecting the blueprint with the potential for that DNA. So the being is an avatar. That being enters a system, and it is like that being makes available for all the collective the possibility and potential for that DNA, and that is what Yeshua did. And I want to just briefly mention the case of when we are hybrids, when we are star seeds that are hybrids. I can't deny that because I know it's real for all of us that we came from these sound fields, you know. When you are an indigo being, okay, but that is very different than to have AI or weird things in your body, okay. That is only saying that you were that you came from a different kind of mixed or lineage in which the angelic human different types were like interbreeding, and then you had a DNA that is not exactly the angelic human 12 DNA strand. You have more DNA strand potential, but it's only that is, and no one that is an indigo is going to tell humanity that they are not enough or that their DNA is not enough, okay? I want to be very clear with this, but I can't lie, okay? So this is about perspective. We can observe this from the inside as all aspects of the earth and the angelic humans, or we can observe this from outside, from the universal stargates, and understand each star system and stargate as a world by itself, as each of them expressing specific collectives of beings. And that is when we talk about galactic history, when we are using the external perspective and we are learning about the specific energetic imprints of the specific life forces that are on the universal stargates that are represented by specific star systems that are specific light and information. So my next videos in this playlist for galactic history are going to be based in that universal stargate perspective. If you enjoy this content, remember to subscribe to this channel, and thank you so much for watching.